YouTube! What the crap's going on? Welcome to my Chaos Army. I got two exalted heroes here, rocking the Manticore along with my Chaos Warlord, or whatever he is. What do they call this guy? Chaos Lord, my bad. My main line is 4 Chaos Warriors. Why? Heavy armor, nice shields. And then behind them I've got Aspiring Champions for magical damage and leadership. I just had some leftover funds, so I brought a unit of Marauders. And I was obviously hoping my Manticores could buy me Supremacy of the Air, and if there was no need for it, I would cause terror. I've got 4 units of Warhounds. This is for chasing down and killing expensive archers, which the elves tend to usually bring. I've got 2 Forsaken for a fast-moving flanking force that does high damage, but I didn't want to bring too many of these guys because of this very reason. I knew they'd be very vulnerable to missiles. So you can see I'm going to go ahead and rush forward. I've got my other Warhounds rushing around the rear of the enemy, and then they can also pick up routing stragglers. There is a Glade Lord on a Forest Dragon. I'm going to start chasing. You can see I've already got the Warhounds and the Forsaken closing in the pincer here, and then the main line is 4 Treekin, backed up by a Branch Wraith. There's a Waystalker and a couple of War Dancers. So you can see that the Elven Archers here, and these are pretty expensive archers. Blade Guard with Starfire Chefs, going to get just completely wrecked right in the beginning. The Azrae Spears are going to be kind of a trouble. The Glade Dragon over here, now I forgot to bring a healing potion for my Lord, by the way. And these Hawk Riders fly some fantastic interference. I start coming in and just beating the crap out of the Glade Dragon because it's 3-1. But all of a sudden, these Hawk Riders are going to make that fight very difficult for me. You can see one of my Exalted Heroes dropping almost instantly from a big hit from the Dragon. It's just they tank hit points, and they keep me from being able to accomplish stuff. And here he's... let's see, did we get netted? No, I can't tell if we got netted. I don't see a net. It's kind of hard to see. So a lot of the Hawk Riders do die, which is great. But they protected the Forest Dragon for quite some time. Fortunately here, it starts to lose its leadership, and I start to clean this fight up, so that's looking good. Now the fight against all the Treekin, the Chaos Warriors are going to tank for a long time because of their high armor and defense stats. It's the Aspiring Champions here who are really going to cause the damage. Their magical attacks will help get through some of the Treekin's natural immunity to physical resistance. See that 20% physical resistance? The magical attacks will ignore that, and you can see that they're helping me cause a lot of damage pretty fast to the Treekin. So that's why I brought them, and it's working out quite nicely. You can see me trying to get rid of some of the Hawk Riders. The Forest Dragon comes back, but I'm trying to push through, and the Hawk Riders continue to get in my way and be a big nuisance, and they're actually going to get rid of one of my Exalted Heroes here. The Warhounds, along with the Marauders, I see the Waystalker back here, and the Waystalker just can't hold his own in melee combat, so I'm going to surround him with the Marauders and all the Warhounds, and this guy is going to have to wonder who let the dogs out. He's going to try and put some cool Legolas moves on these guys, but his short, elfy man skirt is not going to save him from the overwhelming odds there. This starts to get actually a little bit desperate over here because I got netted, and the Glade Lord is picking me apart from distance here. It's not good. See my hit points dropping, and then these Hawk Riders have tied down another Exalted Hero, so this is actually starting to look kind of dire over there. It's pretty close. Over here, fortunately for me though, the Spears aren't doing a ton in this fight, and my Aspiring Champions are chewing down the Treekin slowly but surely. He's using this magical explosion or whatever it is over here, but it just doesn't do much, so it's not a good spell to bring with the Branch Wraith. Some of his Glade Guard come back from routing, and once I notice that I mop up the Waystalker, I'm going to unblob that big blob back there. Now check it out, here it comes. Comes down to a duel, very close between the two. Let's watch what happens. Yes! The Forest Dragon is slain. And these Hawks are going to flee in terror from my Chaos Lord, who without his potion, or actually he's going to flee in terror, but so will they. So yeah, without his potion, managed to survive, and both my Exalted Heroes came back, both very close to death, including my Lord. But this fight over here with the Aspiring Champions, there's another reason to pick the Aspiring Champions. With my heroes not around, the Aspiring Champions have been inspiring my troops this whole time with extra leadership, which keeps my guys in the fight for much longer. You can see my Chaos Warriors here. Like I said, they're just tanks. That's what they're meant to do here. They're going to tank stuff out, and tank they will. 100 armor, like I said, shielded. They've got very solid melee defense stats at 44. And then, like I said, the magical damage that comes off of my Aspiring Champions is going to be a fantastic bit for me here. You can see routing units now being hunted down by the Warhounds. So archers and routing units for the purpose of the Warhounds, and that can pay dividends against the Wood Elves because their expensive archers, if they get caught by the cheap Warhounds, can die. You can see here a Waystalker being kept out just by a cheap Warhound unit as well. A Treekin unit over here getting chased off by a Warhound. So this is the kind of stuff. This other Treekin unit routed, but I couldn't get a Warhound to it quick enough to keep it gone. Nice rear charge here from the Hawk Riders, but I think my guys are just a little too healthy for this to actually work out. See the Branch Wraith in here fighting for his life as well. The Hawk Riders are going to flee out of there, and they're going to come back and try and mop up my returning Air Force. Again, more routing units, so these War Dancers are going to get run down. Make sure that they don't come back and make a difference in the fight. That's really the only use I've found for Warhounds, and there's only specific times, like against an archer-heavy faction, or if you're trying to fear build, that I really find the Warhounds to be worthwhile. Let's get in here close and check this out as the Treekin try to tank this out, but my Aspiring Champions just are not going to let them do it. And I'm causing immense damage to the Treekin with the Aspiring Champions. It doesn't happen instantly, but over time they really chew into the Treekin. So that was a victory for me. Let's check out the stat screen. I really should have brought the healing potion. That was way too close for comfort with my lord. And the healing potion would have made me tank that out easy. We would have had that no problem. The Warhounds ended up being helpful. None of them got a ton of kills, but they were definitely helpful. And then the Aspiring Champions here are actually a key piece to this. Not a lot of kills because my opponent didn't have a lot of units in the center. But yeah, just wrapping up his archers real quick. That caused him to not be able to get his money's worth out of it, and that's a pretty significant investment. And then the Glade Dragon just got, or the Forest Dragon, I always say Glade Dragon. The Glade Lord on her Forest Dragon was dealt with. So there was one other replay I wanted to show you real quick on this same episode, and let's jump into that. I think it's right here. So yeah, this is a replay where I took the Wood Elves against the Greenskins, and my opponent brought a very odd army. And I can only assume from this army here that he's probably either new to multiplayer or new to the game in general, and I wanted to talk about this. My opponent is back here in the forest with 6 archers and 2 pieces of artillery, and hoping to take advantage of a defensive position. Now, the interesting thing about this defensive position is that he's deployed on the back side of the hill, which would actually let my guys get to him with downhill charges. Clearly, he's hiding and he's wanting to use his artillery from range. I'm not bashing any of that. That's fine. Using artillery is sometimes viable in this game and drawing your opponent in. And in this case, it is going to draw me in because I can't just sit back and get shot by it. What I'm trying to advise here is that for those of you who are not real familiar with how to pick armies or maybe new, think about the things that you're going to pick and how they're going to play into the battle, and that will help you start to pick better armies. So think about the units you've picked. What do they do? What are they good against? And how are you going to use those units in an ideal scenario? So a couple of Goblin Rock Lobbers. I mean, honestly, one of these guys is probably enough or too much versus the Wood Elves because they have such long-range archers and flying units and arrows of Kurnos. Usually they have arrows of Kurnos. I did not bring any. So those are just things to be aware of that you need to be careful of. Now, the other thing that the Wood Elves frequently are fielding is going to be these Wild Riders. These guys are quick, and they are devastating to anything other than spear infantry. So you have to be very careful of them. They're extremely good cavalry when it comes to mopping up infantry units. My opponent has brought Savage Orcs. What are Savage Orcs? What's their purpose? Savage Orcs are damage dealers. So they're meant to get into a fight against low armor infantry, which the Wood Elves have plenty of, and cause an immense amount of damage. You can see, though, that they have 0 armor and shields. The only thing protecting them is a loincloth made of gosh only knows. So it's, yeah, you never know there. My main army here, I'll just kind of show it to you real quick. I got a couple of Wildwood Rangers that was going to be what I brought against Black Orcs if needed, because I needed some really strong infantry. I had some War Dancers. These War Dancers are very good against unarmored units, so that's their purpose, is find unarmored units. Durthu, because he's Durthu. 2 Glade Guard. I didn't bring any special variants. And then I have a Spell Singer with healing. and then a couple of Dryads and Eternal Guard that were supposed to support in case I had to come up against Boar Boy Biggins. Now over here, my opponent comes out early to skirmish with my flank, and he sends out his Savage Orcs and these missile chariots, these Goblin Wolf chariots. And he's hoping to skirmish with me, but he didn't see my Wild Rider that had snuck through the forest and comes out on his flank, and I'm going to immediately get into his Goblin Wolf chariot and shut this thing down. Goblin Wolf chariots, I have not found much, if any, use for them, and I would highly advise against using them. Again, this replay is mostly directed towards newer players. So, if you look at my opponent's army, what was the purpose? What are Goblin Wolf chariots going to do for you against the Wood Elves? And the answer is probably not much. 6 archers who all have relatively short range, 115 range with no armor, shields, or anything else. Again, what are they going to do for you against the Wood Elves? Not much. The Wood Elves have long range. And then bunching up, again, when you see Durthu, don't bunch up, because he's got Flock of Doom. So I just pulled about 800 hit points off of every single unit that was in that blob. My infantry's going to engage, and I'm going to get overwhelmed by numbers here. And all the archer fire and everything else, it's going to be a bit of a nightmare. But because my opponent took this defensive position, again, he got downhill charged rather than coming up to the top of the hill. His artillery is now useless because he's engaged in close combat. Durthu is looking at this Goblin Big Boss who doesn't have a wolf, and he is going to get pummeled by the giant tree. So again, I'm not really sure that my opponent had really totally considered what this army was going to do. And it's fine. I mean, it's your game. You can play it the way you want, not bashing on someone. I'm just trying to give you some tips. Savage Orcs, probably not a great pick versus the Wood Elves. I mean, they could be if you just wanted to overwhelm a Wood Elf line, but just be aware they're extremely vulnerable to cavalry charges, and they're extremely vulnerable to missiles, both of which the Wood Elves can field. They would also be very poor against treekin. Yeah, so I mean, it's just something to be aware of. Look at all these archers back here, all these Night Goblin archers. All my stag cavalry, the Wild Riders, coming in here and just smashing the morale of these Greenskins. And we're going to rout a huge blob of Greenskins out of the forest because of the rear charge of the Wild Riders. So like I said, these guys cannot be underestimated. Both of them have racked up close to 100 kills in one charge. The Dryads, along with the spears, overwhelming his guys on the flanks. And then Durthu finished off the Goblin Big Boss. And the Orc War Boss is over here fighting against my War Dancers. Just trying to keep them busy, basically. So yeah, here's a couple of just quick tips for beginners. Don't bunch up your units. It's going to make it really easy for you to get outflanked and picked apart, like I was able to do here. So don't bunch up your units. That's a bad idea right from the beginning. And then as you pick your army, you're never going to get it 100% right. Just think about what your opponent could bring and do your best to bring an army that will be better than that. I know that's kind of like, I mean, you have to basically guess what your opponent's going to bring, and yes, you do. Sometimes you're going to be wrong. Sometimes it doesn't work out all right. But again, just think about what you're picking. Think about how it's going to help you. Look at the map. Does the map have a lot of forest? Does the map have a lot of terrain? All those things, use all those factors to make your decisions, and over time I think you'll learn more about the units and what's good. And you know, sometimes you're not going to get it right, and honestly some big help is to watch videos like these or any videos that someone's making. It'll teach you how other players play, and it'll teach you more about what they do, and then over time it will get easier for you to counter build people, and you'll find yourself getting better at multiplayer. It's a learning process, and I just wanted to kind of talk through that. If you all want to know any other tips, ask the people in the chat. Like if you're a new player and you want some tips, ask the folks in my comment section, and then ask me as well, and I'll try and answer some of those questions. Happy to help. Love to have new players coming into multiplayer, but like I said, sometimes I see it and I just want to give people a few tips because it doesn't work out for them. Hey look, I'm trying to recover from my Balthasar Gelt Knight. I was all the way up to like 1,000, so it's kind of slowly coming down. Key, if you're new also, don't use Balthasar Gelt, by the way. Alright, hope you all enjoyed it. Hope you have a happy new year. HeirofCarthage, signing out for now.